For all the latest updates, subscribe to News9.
The tensions between US and China have escalated over the last few days. In the latest, China has ordered the US to shut its consulate in Chengdu in China's Sichuan province. This comes as another blow to the rapidly deteriorating relations between United States and China. China's move comes as retaliation after the US ordered the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston. The Chinese Foreign Ministry called this an equivalent and reciprocal countermeasure.
Closing US Chengdu consulate is a legitimate and necessary response to the US sudden closure of Chinese consulate in Houston. The Chinese move is in compliance with international law and basic norms of international relations as well as diplomatic practices.
Chinese Foreign Ministry held US responsible for their deteriorating relationship.
The current situation between China and the US is something China does not want to see, and the responsibility rests entirely with the US. We once again urge the US to revoke its decision and create necessary conditions for the return of bilateral relations.
The order by the Chinese side came after the US abruptly asked China on Tuesday to close its consulate in Houston. The Chinese Foreign Ministry will reportedly take countermeasures that will cause real pain to the US. Some speculation had earlier emerged that China might close down US Consulate General in Wuhan. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo slammed the Chinese Communist Party's behavior towards international relations. Mike Pompeo and other US top officials have upped the ante against China. Mike Pompeo said China is repeating its mistakes.
The CCP is repeating some of the same mistakes that the Soviet Union made. Alienating potential allies, breaking trust at home and abroad, rejecting property rights and predictable rule of law.
The US has accused China of theft of intellectual property for Beijing's benefit. Mike Pompeo also commented on the closure of Chinese consulate in the US, stating that China was spying on them.
Just this week, we announced the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston because it was a hub of spying and intellectual property theft.
This was the first major speech by Mike Pompeo after the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston. Pompeo accused China of unfair trade practices, human rights abuses, and efforts to infiltrate American society. The two countries have clashed recently over trade, technology, a national security law imposed on Hong Kong, and China's claims in the South China Sea. Relations between US and China have deteriorated significantly since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus in the Chinese city of Wuhan. Recently, Mike Pompeo hailed India for its decision of banning 59 Chinese apps. Pompeo said the US is also considering a ban on Chinese apps.